The Flying Serpent, or Strange News out of Essex, being a true relation of a monstrous serpent which had the first times been seen at a parish called Henham on the Mount, within 4 miles of Saffron Walden, showing the length, proportion, and bigness of the serpent, the place where it commonly lurks, and what means hath been used to kill it. Also, a discourse of other serpents, and particularly of a cockatrice killed at Saffron Walden. The truth of this relation of the serpent is attested by Richard Jackson, churchwarden, Thomas Presland, constable, John Knight, overseer for the poor, Barnaby Thurgood, Samuel Garrett, Richard Seeley, and William Green, householders. Guests, fish, and news grow stale in 3 days' time, and nothing delights an Englishman's fancy so much as new novelties. For like the Athenians, we have still itching ears after news, which once told we soon grow weary of it, and hearken after more, being still desirous of that which is new, which makes so many tautologies in the title of books, some styling them new news, whereas if it be news, it must needs be new. So also a new almanac for the year 1669, whereas an almanac for such a year were as proper, if not properer. For if it be only for that year, it can neither be new nor old for any other. But this news which I shall now relate, as it is certain, being attested by many credible persons, so it is also new, the venomous creature being still living, though oftentimes attempted by the inhabitants to be killed. The place of his abode, and where he hath oftentimes been seen, is called Henham, but most commonly Henham on the Mount, the town standing upon a hill, having many fair farms and granges belonging to it, in one of which named the lodge near to a wood called Birchwood, by reason of the many birches growing there, in a pasture ground close by the same. As this monstrous serpent, being often seen as he hath lain upon the sides of a bank, beaking and stretching himself out upon the same, at such time as Sol did parch the earth with his refulgent beams. Then, when the sun shines hot, he nimbly hurls his wanton body into numerous curls, gathered in folds, shoots out his forked tongue to save himself and give his foes the wrong. The first time that he was seen was about the 27th or 28th of May last, a gentleman's way lying by the place where this serpent keeps his station, as he rid carelessly on, expecting to receive no hurt, as he intended none. On a sudden this serpent assailed his horse, affrighting the rider so much with his monstrous proportion and bold courage, to give such onset, that in amaze he spurred his horse, who almost as much afraid as his master, with winged speed hasted away, glad that they had escaped such an imminent danger. Being come home, he acquaints his friends and neighbours with what he had seen of this monstrous serpent, especially makes it known to a neighbour in whose grounds this serpent doth lurk, wishing him to beware of his cattle, and to use his best endeavour for destroying it, lest by protraction of time it might do much mischief, when I had wist would be but small comfort to him for the losses he might sustain. Not long after, 2 men of the same parish walking that way espied this serpent as he lay on a hillock, beaking himself against the sun, where they beheld his full proportion, being as near as they could guess 8 or 9 foot long, the smallest part of him about the bigness of a man's leg, on the middle as big as a man's thigh. His eyes were very large and piercing, about the bigness of a sheep's eye. In his mouth he had 2 rows of teeth, which appeared to their sight very white and sharp, and on his back he had 2 wings indifferent large, but no proportionable to the rest of his body. they judging them not to be above 2 handfuls long, and when spreaded, not to extend from the top of the one wing to the utmost end of the other, above 2 foot at the most, and therefore altogether too weak to carry such an unwieldy body. These men, though armed with clubs and staves, yet durst not approach to strike this serpent, neither, it seems, was the serpent afraid of them, for raising himself upon his breast about the height of 2 foot, he stood looking on them as daring them to encounter, like to that of the Theban serpent, of which thus the poet, which with a hissing from his den appears, amazing both at once the eyes and ears, fire from his threatening eyes like lightning shot, and Stygian blast exhaled from his dire throat. Not knowing on a sudden what to do, at last it was resolved by them that one should go to the lodge, which was not far off, to fetch a gun, and the other in the meantime to watch the serpent, who still stood facing them, as though he dreaded no danger that could happen to him, being as fierce and undaunted as that serpent of which the divine Dubartas giveth us this description. Several snakes that out of Libya's slime are bred, they all in him might well combine, nor could Medusa's head, had all the blood in one place fallen, produce a deadlier brood, whose speckled belly with more spots is decked than various Theban marble is bespecked. But whilst the one was thus gone for the gun, the serpent, as if he had waited long enough, folds himself up, and darting forth returns to the wood, making such a rustling noise in the hedges, as if some wild boar or other large beast had been breaking through it. About 2 days after the same serpent was seen by another, who gave the same description of it, with the 2 former as is written above. Since which time it hath been seen by divers who have fruitlessly attempted to kill it. For now, upon the sight of a man, it presently betakes itself to the wood, where he remains safe, none daring to come nigh it with clubs, and for their guns in that place where he can hide himself in bushes and bents, they are altogether useless. Yet has there been, and is still continued to this day, great watching by several persons with muskets and fowling pieces and such like to shoot it, but as yet hath been no man's good fortune to light on him. The report of this serpent is so terrible to the inhabitants thereabout, that no women, children, nay, nor a great many men durst not go near the place where he lurks. Yet we hear not of any mischief that he hath yet done, though it be a wonder to most people on what he subsists, and that hunger does not compel him to range further abroad, seeing he wants not for courage, as may be evidenced in his so facing the 2 men aforesaid. We read in ancient histories of a serpent in Tripoli, a country in Asia, that was 125 paces in length. He had a mouth so wide that he could swallow a man on horseback, and each of his scales was big as a large shield. They also tell us of Hydra, a monstrous serpent on the lake of Lerna, who having one head cut off, immediately had 2 other heads grew up in the same place. This serpent was at last slain by Hercules. Pliny tells us of the rhinoceros, a small serpent which winds himself about the leg of an elephant, who with his trunk seeking to rid him, when forthwith the serpent creeps into the trunk and so kills the elephant. But long he enjoys not the conquest, for the elephant kills the rhinoceros with his fall. He also tells us of the scorpion, a venomous serpent with 7 feet. His sting is in his tail. Sometimes they eat their young ones, and are of diverse colours. The female is the biggest and hath the sharpest sting. The Arcadian scorpion will not hurt their countrymen, nor the Syrian snakes, nor the Tyrinthian serpent. We also read of a serpent named Amphishora, who had a head at both ends, as also of a serpent called Boas, of that bigness that being found dead, there was a whole child in his belly. The asp is a very venomous serpent. They always go two and two together, and if one of them be slain, the other will pursue him eagerly that slew him. And if a man chance to be bitten by this serpent, it is present death, if he cut not off the member so bitten. Cleopatra, queen of Egypt, being taken by Caesar, applying these serpents to her body, wilfully slew herself. Nor can we forget here the viper, a most venomous serpent. The male hath but on tooth of each side, the female more. But of all serpents, the basilisk, or cockatrices, the most venomous of all other. It breaketh stones, blasteth all plants with its breath, it burneth everything it goeth over. No herb can grow near the place of his abode, it is poison to poison, and fighteth away all other serpents, only with a hissing. If a man touch it, though with a long pole, it kills him, and if it see a man afar off, it destroys him with its looks. It is not above a foot in length, of colour between black and yellow, having very red eyes, a sharp head, and a white spot hereon like a crown. It goeth not winding like other serpents, but upright on his breast. One of these most venomous serpents in former time lurked about the meads near Saffron Walden in Essex, who by his very sight killed so many as the town became almost depopulated, when a valorous knight, making him a coat of crystal glass, boldly went to assail this cockatrice. But her venomous nature, not able to endure the purity of that fine metal, she suddenly died, in memory whereof his sword was hung up in Walden church, the effigies of the cockatrice set up in the brass, and a table hanged close by, wherein was continued all the story of the adventure. But in these late times of rebellion, it being taken for a monument of superstition, was by the lawless soldiers broken in pieces, to show they were also of a venomous nature, as well as the cockatrice. We read that in the reign of King Edward III, anno 1354, near Chipping Norton in Oxfordshire, was found a serpent having two heads, and two faces like women, one face attired of the new fashion of women's attire, the other face like the old attire, and had wings like a bat. Therefore, serpents in this kingdom are no new thing, and those far more monstrous and prodigious than this, though this one be one of the greatest we have heard of in this latter age. Nor is there any countries in the whole world exempted from them, saving only Crete or Candy, an island of Greece, for which now there is so much stir betwixt the Christians and Turks, and the country of Ireland, which two places do neither breed any venomous worms, nor hurtful creatures, nor will any live there if they be brought thither from foreign countries. And to this purpose I shall tell you a story, and so draw towards a conclusion. A certain countryman coming up to London, a friend of his showed him all the rarities of the city. Amongst others, one was Westminster Hall, which his friend told him was sealed with Irish wood, the nature of which is such as it would endure no venomous creature nigh it. Ah, said the countryman, if the feats and bars were made of that wood, the lawyers must find some other place to plead in. And now for a corollary on the whole. I shall insert some verse made by an excellent poet upon a serpent found near Milan in Italy. A poisonous serpent them himself extended, his speckled breast and flamy mane all bending. Above his mane his ugly odious tail, and back with fearful folds does wriggling trail. His goggling eyes flashing forth blood and fire, his hissing mouth sharp tongue does stench expire. With spacious windings rolling on the sand, he killeth all that cometh near at hand. Postscript. since I am informed by the neighbours thereabout that they intend to keep a constant watch upon it till such a time as they hope to kill it. Vinny.